Rock 30-06 here. Today I wanted to discuss bow options if you want to go bow hunting. So I'm going to educate people on the different types of bows there is. First off, we have what's called a crossbow, like this here. Now this one here in particular is what you call a recurve crossbow. Now there's also compound crossbows that have like cams like this on them. They usually go more feet per second. There's pros and cons of everything. With the cams, you usually get more feet per second. But if your string breaks or something in the field and you don't have a bow press, you're kind of stuck, right? But with these recurve style bows, if your string breaks and you're smart enough to have another spare string in your kit, you can just put that right on your bow when you're out in the field, and then you're up and running again. And if you're on a trip where you're up north somewhere and there's no place to get supplies and nothing accessible, and you're with your buddies, you're kind of screwed when you're up there for weeks. You can't even hunt anymore. You don't have a backup bow. So in the very least, if you have a string and it's a recurve, you can restring your bow and then you're up and running again. So some things to think about. Of course, with everything, there's always pros and cons. All right. So that's what there's a crossbow. There's what you call a compound bow, which this is it. This is a compound here. Okay. So this is what you call a compound bow. It has cams. Okay. So with the cam, you can pull the bow back, and what happens is you hit what's called a wall when you put it back, and it's easier to hold and sustain the weight of the bow from the draw weight. Also, we have what's called pin sights. So you're able to sight in your target and what's called a peep sight, which is back here. Now here, we call it a D-loop. You put it on the glove, and it has like a trigger. You pull it back, and this is called your kisser button. You put it in the corner of your mouth, and that way you have the same anchor point all the time. So this is what you call a compound bow. So it's very similar in some ways to shooting a iron sight rifle with a rear and front sight. But of course, the shooting principles are different because it's a bow and it's not a rifle. But just put things in perspective. It's a great option for hunting. Most hunters use a compound bow. But also there's a lot of hunters using a crossbow. So, I mean, that's another option. Now, the more ancient traditional option from hundreds of years ago, and people still do it today, is what's called a recurve bow or a long bow. This one here is actually a recurve bow, okay? I love this bow. It's 55 pounds. It's a Fleetwood. And for a person on a budget, you can buy a beautiful recurve or long bow, high quality, for under $200. The thing is, though, when you go with traditional recurve or long bow, a lot more practice involved with these bows. The thing is, you have to learn how to shoot instinctively. You can get like sights for these bows. If you're not going to go bare bow, you want to get sights, you can, but they're not as accurate as a compound bow. And again, a compound bow is not as accurate as a crossbow because crossbows have scopes on them. All of these you need to have practice if you haven't shot them before. But if you want to get in the game quickly, yes, crossbow is the quickest way to get in the game. Still need to practice, but you won't need to practice as much as you would if you were going to shoot a compound bow. And again, you wouldn't need to practice as much with this as you would with traditional recurve or longbow, because this is more instinctive. It takes a while to get to that point. This one here, as long as you follow the fundamentals and everything, and you practice and you get pretty proficient at it, you can go out hunting. So, I mean, as you go this way, it takes more training to get good enough to be able to hunt in the field. But as you go this way, things get more expensive usually. Well, actually, crossbows and compounds are about equal in price. Recurves, even with the high quality ones, are normally a lot cheaper than, over here. So that's the options for bow hunting. There's so much to learn with bows, but if you're a beginner and this is what this video is for, I'm not going to go into detail much more than that because it'll be over your head. But with these guys, again, remember you can get a compound type bow, or you can go recurve with crossbows, and then you can get a compound bow, or you can get a recurve bow or a long bow. Okay, so those are your options when you go hunting. The average hunter here, and especially someone that's just getting into it. So for beginners and the average hunter, normally with a traditional recurve or longbow, your shooting distance is 20 yards. You know, you want to be accurate, and you want an ethical kill. You don't want to wound the animal and then have the animal suffer. So usually it's 20 yards for a traditional recurve and longbow. Also, it's about, I would say, like it's recommended by our ministry, 45 pounds of draw weight for deer, 55 pounds of draw weight for moose. Okay, so I know that, you know, some people say, you know, you can get away with 35 pounds. Sure, but I'm just telling you, depending on where you're living, sometimes it's by law, it has to be 45 pounds for deer and 55 pounds for moose. So with compound bows, most people, you know, their shooting distance doubles is 40 yards. You know, for some people it's 50 yards. For me, it's 50 yards. I practice a lot though. I shoot at 50 yards. There's some other people I've seen on YouTube, they're shooting at 70 yards at game. I stick to 50 yards. That's what I'm comfortable with. It's all in your comfort zone of how good your skill level is. So for me, it's like I said, 50 yards. Other people I've talked to, a lot of people I talk to, is 40, 35 yards. Now, with the crossbow, usually they recommend 60 yards shooting distance. There's some people going 80 to 100. For me personally, I would maybe max out at 70, but I try to keep it around 60 yards for my ethical kill. So, I mean, it's all in your comfort zone, and when you practice on the range, you know what your skill level is. But keep in mind, if you're not a hunter and you haven't hunted before and you're getting into it, I'm telling you right now, your first time, your heart's going to be pounding, and you got to learn to breathe and control your breathing and calm yourself down. You might have the shakes. So what you normally shoot when you're at the range is not going to be the same when you start hunting until you get used to just having that adrenaline rush. So you could probably cut your distance in half sometimes for some people, depending on the person. So those are all the factors you got to think about. So yeah, that's pretty much my lesson for today for new hunters. And yeah, L Rock 30-06, over and out.